Hi Internet, Arc speaking. When a player first starts getting into competitive Mario Kart Wii, most people are nice enough to help teach newer players the basics, like how to drift, practicing lines and alignments, tricks, the whole beginner suite. However, having coached a decent amount of players myself, there's normally one fairly important concept that either gets left out or forgotten, that I would then have to go back and teach and explain to these newer players. Of course, I'm talking about how to land, or how to land properly. Due to the ramps and the natural bumpy feel of this game, you are normally airborne for about 5 to 10% of the race, depending on the course, and when you are airborne, unbeknownst to most of you, you are losing time, sometimes a lot of time. So let's learn how to land properly. By the way, quick reminder, I do stream over at Twitch, twitch.tv/ArcIntel. I feel like I don't shout out my socials that much. Yeah, did you know I was originally a streamer before a YouTuber? Yeah, I didn't think so. First, when going off a ramp, you have two primary options that you can do. A nosedive, which is done by holding up on your control stick, or a tail dive, which is done by holding down on your control stick. A nosedive cuts airtime, so you fall faster when nosediving. On the contrary, tail diving, well, take a wild guess, you fall slower when tail diving. As most of you know, airtime is slower than ground time, unless it's an exception like the Rainbow Road Moonjump. So why would you ever tail dive instead of nosedive? That's a good question. The main reason why you would tail dive is because tail dive gives you a much better landing. If you nosedive from a high ramp onto the floor without pivoting or soft landing, we'll get to those in a second, you'll get a bounce. These bounces bleed a lot of speed and are deceptively slow, normally nullifying the time you saved by nosediving plus a bit extra. That's why generally I'd recommend for most ramps, nosedive, then about halfway through, start to tail dive so you get a good landing. So that's hold up on your control stick, then hold down. Remember, it takes time for the character to transition from nosediving to tail diving. And in case any of you guys were wondering, you can still get a bounce even when you're level landed. That's to say, not in a nose or tail dive. So keep that in mind. Next, let's talk about a few advanced landing techniques, pivots, and soft lands. If you've ever watched any BKT, aka World Records, you'll notice that they almost always nosedive, even at places where online you would tail dive, and they do it all without getting a bounce. This is because they are soft landing. Right before you're about to touch the ground in a nosedive, there's a small window where if you ease off the control stick to neutral slowly, you can actually follow the contour of the road, making it so you don't bounce. The reason we don't do this online is because most people are not good enough, or more accurately, not consistent enough to pull this off, well, consistently. However, understanding this concept, that you could ease a nosedive without bouncing, explains why certain ramps we intentionally land in a nosedive instead of a tail dive, like the low on Moo Moo Meadows and the triple shroom skip on Mushroom Gorge, as the ground is level enough that you can nosedive without having that harsh downward slope into the ground, making it so you don't bounce. Pivots. Pivots is what happens when you intentionally get a bounce to help realign. By holding up, then right as you are about to hit the ground, hold left or right on your control stick, you can actually bounce around obstacles or help with poor alignments. An example that comes to mind is the DK Summit Cannon Exit if you're on the Sneakster. That way you can realign and catch the zipper, as otherwise the Sneakster's poor drift radius normally wouldn't allow you to do that. Lastly, a few other miscellaneous stuff about nosedives and tail dives. Nosedives with soft landings don't have arcs when landing. Tail dives do. What is an arc? Hi. Yo. No, an arc is a fixed curve pattern that your bike will follow depending on what you did before. Let me explain this in English. The most obvious place you'll notice this arc is the TF Lake Cut Shroomless. You sometimes will hold hard right when taking this cut, but sometimes your bike just won't turn that much. This is because the arc is duller on a tail dive, as the rear of the vehicle swings out, and instead of following the front tire, like a normal drift does, it will follow the rear tire, which has a wider arc radius. If you know anything about real-life cars, you may be familiar with the term understeer and oversteer. It's something very similar to that. Generally speaking, this shouldn't affect the game that much, but it's good to be aware of. It explains why certain techniques like double hop drifting and tail dive drifting work in the way that they do. Hey, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments about this topic or any other topic of my videos, feel free to hit me up at twitch.tv/ArcIntel, join the Discord, or if you don't mind me taking 20 years getting back to you, type it down below. Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff on your way out, and happy racing.